Hello and welcome to my presentation on multiple digit subtraction. Another name for that, big number subtraction. We're talking about subtracting numbers that have more than one digit, like 25 or 105 or 3005. We're talking big numbers here. And I can already hear you asking me, Mr. C, why? Why do we have to know how to do big number subtraction or multiple digit subtraction? Well, there's a couple good reasons. One, subtraction is crucial to going forward. Just like learning multiple digit addition, which you probably just learned, was important to moving on to this step. Learning subtraction is just as important. Even as you move on to multiplication and division and fractions, percents, decimals, all the other computational math skills all have something to do with subtraction, or at least can. And then finally, why subtraction is important to me, I'd say money, dealing with my money, dealing with my finances, just like addition. Subtraction is very important when you're when you're using money in the real world. So let me give you a quick snapshot of a poor, unfortunate student who does not understand multiple digit subtraction. And let's see what happens to him in a segment that I like to call Getting Schooled by Mr. C. So sit back and see what happens to what honestly might happen to you someday if you don't pick up this very important math skill. Take a look.
Hey Foster, come on over here for a second, man. Sorry. Remember when you asked me to hold on to those 54 pieces of candy that you had? Remember that? Yeah, you remember when you said that if I did that, that I could keep 12 pieces for myself? You remember that? Alright, man. Well, here's the 30 pieces that are left, because 54 minus 12 is 30, right? Alright, here you go. Oh, snap! Foster, you just got schooled by Mr. C.
And yes, in fact, Foster did get schooled by Mr. C. But if you don't know big number subtraction or multiple digit subtraction, you might not know how. So let's learn it. Okay. I'd say this is a little bit more difficult than addition because there's an important step that you have to do in subtraction sometimes that you really don't have to do in addition. But let's start out by taking a look at some problems. There's 38 minus 14. That's not so bad because both of those numbers go out to the same place value. This one's a little more difficult because if you look, 164 goes all the way out to the hundreds place, which can get difficult if you're not careful. And then this one, which may look easy, you may be looking at this going 303 minus 8. That doesn't look so hard, but it is if you're not careful. And let's just start out with what I would consider the most basic rule. Same thing as multiple digit addition. When you are doing multiple digit subtraction, you must always line up your place values. Okay, so if you remember from the last lesson, we're going to start out with our first number. Let's go to 38. Okay. And then we're going to line up the next problem right underneath. Now I'm going to start out by lining up the ones places. Okay, so I'm going to put the 4 from the 14 under the 8 from the 38, and then go out to the tens place. Put the happy, snappy little subtraction sign there so your teacher knows what you're doing if he walks by your desk. And then you're just doing single digit subtraction for this problem, which really isn't hard. 8 minus 4. If you don't know that, this is not the lesson for you. 8 minus 4 is 4, and 3 minus 1 is 2. So the answer to 38 minus 14 is 24. Okay? We're going to move right along to the second problem because this one is actually quite a bit more difficult, and it has an important step in it that you just can't miss. Now, I'm going to go through what I see a lot of my students do, and then I'm going to explain, or at least quickly explain, why it's wrong. Now, when you look at this problem, and a lot of my students, what they tend to do is they say, okay, all right, I've lined this all up. I've got the ones places lined up. I've got the tens places lined up. Ooh, it's a little scary because I got this number in the hundreds place with nothing underneath it, but I'm confident we'll get to that, okay? 4 minus 8. Sometimes my students subtract this the wrong way. And they say, oh, 8 minus 4 is 4. If you do that, you will get the wrong answer. Look, I'm going to scribble it out. I'll even change it over to a different color pen here and scribble this out. You cannot ever subtract upwards. That is bad news, and you will get the wrong answer. So I know what you're saying right now, but Mr. C, you can't take 8 away from 4. You can't take 8 away from 4. 4 minus 8, that's like a negative number. I don't even know what a negative number is. Correct. So what you have to do, pay attention right here. Pause the video and back it up a few times if you have to. You have to borrow from the 6. So this 6 is going to become a 5. Okay, so I'm taking 1 from the 6. Now, if you understand place value, which you should at this point, if you don't know place value, you should watch that video first before you come here. You're not actually taking 1 away from the 6, you're taking 10 away because this 6 is in the tens place. So it's actually a 60. So what you're doing is taking a full 10 away from this 60 and turning it into a 50. See, this is the ones place, this is the tens place. So this 6 is a 60. And this 5 is a 50. So we just turned this 60 into a 50. So now we can add 10 to the 4, okay, and turn it into a 14. Now we can subtract the 8. What's 14 take away? 8. I hope I'm right here. 6. Correct. Okay, now we can continue the problem. So we go over to the next row. What's 5 minus 1? Everybody, 4. And then the final step, the hundreds place, 1 minus, there's no number under there. So it's 1 minus 0 equals 1. So our answer to 164 minus 18 is, love my flame effects, 146. Very good. All right, now, this is the toughest of the 3 problems. You might say the toughest of 3. I mean, I can probably do this in my head. Yes, you might be able to do this in your head, but I'm actually hoping that you can't, because I'm going to show you an interesting little nuance. Nuance means something that shows up sometimes, but not all the time. An interesting little thing that shows up in subtraction sometime. Now look, don't panic. Maybe you already see it. Okay, you say, what's 3 minus 8? We're not going to subtract upwards, are we? No, we're not going to say 8 minus 3 is 5. You can't do that. That's breaking the rules. So what's 3 minus 8? Well, we already learned we can't do that. So we have to borrow. You can't borrow from a 0. A 0 has nothing. Okay, there's nothing in the tens place of this problem. So you have to borrow. So this 0 really has to borrow from the 3. Because look, we can't take 1 away from it. So now we have to borrow from the 3. The 3 is going to become a 2. And now this 0 is going to become a 10. Now, if you're thinking place value, and I know there's some teachers out there freaking out right now because they're saying, no, 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 you know, that's 100. Look, you're taking not 1 away from the 3. You're taking 100 away from 300. Yes, you are. But for all intents and purposes, if you just want to quickly get an answer to the problem, this is a way to do it. If you don't understand place value, like I said before, place value is very important and number sense is very important. But this is how I learned how to do big number subtraction, so this is how I'm going to teach you. So now look, this 0 became a 10. Now we can borrow from it. Okay, now we can borrow 1 from it. The 10 is going to become a, what's 10 minus 1? 9. And the 3 is going to become a 13. Okay, now do you see how I took 10 away, really, from this 100? Okay, because a 10 in the tens place is actually 100. Let's not get too confused about that. Okay, 10 minus 1 is 9, and then add a 1 to the front of the 3, making it 13. Now you can subtract. What's 13 take away? 8. I think I'm right when I say 5. And then the rest is easy. 9 minus, no number. 9 minus 0 is 9. And 2 minus, no number, that's a 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. So our answer to 303 minus 8 is 295. If you got confused there, and I know you got confused there if this is your first time ever doing big number subtraction, back it up and watch me go through those steps a few times. Okay, I did a few different things. The first problem was actually pretty easy. Okay, I didn't have to borrow from any numbers in other place values or anything. I was just lining them up. The numbers on top were big enough where I could subtract them. In the second problem, we started to learn how to borrow. And then in the third problem, we did some really complicated borrowing. So if you have to, and you should, just to make sure you know how, back it up and check it out again. Maybe try the problems yourself, okay? All right. So we want to know, how bad did our friend Foster get schooled? Well, let's just remember, what was the problem here? We had Mr. C was holding on to 54 pieces of Foster's candy. I was supposed to keep 12, and then I only gave him 30 back. So you tell me, how bad did Foster get schooled? He had 54 pieces, right? And he said, Mr. C, well, you can keep 12 of them, right? 54, take away 12. How much candy was I supposed to give back to Foster? I gave him 30 pieces. Was that fair? You tell me. You do the math. After you find out the answer, raise your hand, show your teacher. If there's no teacher in the room, call your mom into the room. If there's no mom into the room, there's got to be a little brother or maybe, I don't know, a pet. Okay? Explain how you found the answer. Good luck. And then let's just quickly, you do the math. I'm not going to do it for you. Let's talk about some of the things that we learned today. And hopefully we learned something. First, multiple digit subtraction is important. You have to know how to do this to go on any further. You have to practice it. You have to try it again and again and again and get faster and faster and faster with it. Borrowing is very important. Making sure that you do not subtract upwards is very important. You have to know how to do these things in order to move further in math. And you always, 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 just like when we're talking about addition, must line up your place values. The ones places have to be on top of each other, the tens, the hundreds, and so on. And then when you learn about decimals, you're going to have to line those up too, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so practice this. Play with it. Hopefully this helped you a little bit. Have somebody write down some problems for you. Challenge yourself to see if you can get the answer. Good luck and keep mathing.